Rum Diary is a 2011 film adaptation of the Hunter S. Thompson novel of the same name, directed by Bruce Robinson and starring Johnny Depp, Aaron Eckhart, and Giovanni Ribisi.
Does anybody drink 161 miniatures?
Are they not complimentary?
Hey, mama,
She sunbathes in the nude.
Take it like two maracas.
She's a sweet little beauty.
I was looking at his boat.
We've all been down on her. It's a wonderful experience.
It's private. Front seat's gone.
I've got a brilliant idea.
Try and look normal.
Welcome back to the Cult of Film, which, as you can tell, is under new management. I'm Colin Yeti, and I'm joined tonight by Johnny Mulligans and Zach. How you doing tonight, gentlemen?
Hey, doing well.
Still technically alive.
Unlike the previous host of this show.
I know. He was delicious.
I'm sad to hear of his passing.
Yeah, but the show's better now. I mean, I think so anyways.
I mean, you got me, so...
That's right. We got Zach. We lost John. We gained a Zach. So, boys, you got your rums?
Yes.
I have water. I don't have any rum.
Oh, well.
Sorry.
That's sad. It's minus points for Zach, but that's okay.
Points.
That's okay. I'm going with the 1888 Brugal.
Oh, you got a very, very fancy rum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a plantation special dry. Some word I can't say on there, so it's pretty tasty.
I've got the Ozark 100% natural spring water.
Made with pure cane sugar, I'm sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Just spooked with it, just a little bit.
So, Johnny, this was your pick. Why are we talking about the Rum Diary?
For Christ's sake, keep it out.
We're talking about the Rum Diary because this was a pet project of Hunter Thompson for a good portion of his career. He made this is one of those books that he was early on making a push for, and for the longest time he couldn't get anybody to read it. And I don't believe it was until after the success of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas that there was enough fanfare and appetite for more Hunter S. Thompson material that movie producers looked at it more closely. I think the book had gotten published at that point, but it was not one of his more renowned works necessarily. But it was. I remember in my 20s I had a little bit of like a Hunter Thompson fandom thing going on, so I was reading some of his work, and I remember reading about Rum Diaries. There's books of his letters, and he was talking about this book and having a hard time getting it to a publisher, getting an editor to look at it, kind of thing. So he did a lot of sports writing, and he did a lot of other things before this became, a thing, before it came to fruition. And this movie, I believe, came out after his passing.
It did.
It was in memoriam to him.
Yeah, I think Johnny Depp did a lot of work with Hunter directly when he was getting ready for the role in Fear and Loathing, and it was a big method acting process for him, and it comes through here in this movie as well. You see Hunter's writing and character coming to life in his acting, and you can see it all. Like if you see any videos of Hunter Thompson in interviews, if you see his interactions with behind the scenes kind of work.
Perfect shot. Best shot of the day. Really, a super shot.
Thank you. Look at that.
With a big fucking thing like that, that was a bastard of a shot.
I think you're going to find that Depp's portrayal of him and the character that Hunter Thompson wrote, Paul Kemp in the movie,
Kemp, yeah.
you see a lot of parallels between that character and Hunter himself. So he really wrote it as himself. I think I liked it better the second time around myself.
I wanted to read the book to compare, but honestly, I was like, the movie was fine. I didn't hate it, but it just, there were a lot of kind of shoehorned in things that it felt a little like it would try to go one place and then try to go another place, and then when it finally got to the end, it was like, okay, this movie is about rallying against the man, basically, right? And I still enjoyed it. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just didn't think it's like a great movie. That's why I kind of want to read the book. Sometimes you'll see movies that are like you don't enjoy as much, and you read the book and then you watch it again. You're like, oh, okay, yeah. So I definitely am gonna put some more time into this.
Yeah. So this movie has a special place in my heart because I am a huge Hunter S. Thompson fan. So I was really glad that Johnny chose it. If you read the book, and you can't just read the single book, you really have to go through like the works of Hunter S. Thompson. Okay. And I know that's really difficult to appreciate as a singular movie, but you really have to go through the works of Hunter S. Thompson. And what you see over the course of this movie is him becoming who he became as a writer.
How much do you drink?
I suppose at the upper end of social. I'm poised to give up.
Throughout this movie, he's just kind of finding his voice. It's very Hunter-esque language, but like Johnny was talking about Depp's portrayal as Hunter, Johnny did a great job of portraying him, but he also did a really great job of portraying Hunter before all of the drugs, before all of the gonzo journalism. Like he did it, like towards the end, Hunter would be mumbling so much that you could barely understand what he was saying. And in Fear and Loathing, Johnny portrayed that very well.
Where are some golf shoes? Otherwise we'll never get out of this place alive. Impossible to walk in this muck. No footing at all.
In this movie was a more clear, concise Hunter who was just kind of finding the way that he was going to go. There was even a line at the end of the movie, like it's basically saying, I found my voice. I'm going to write the truth of the people. I'm going to, write the truth with ink and rage, which is really how Hunter approached the whole rest of his career. So I love this movie, but again, it's such a deep dive into Hunter S. Thompson. And this is like his origin story, basically. Like, this is his Dark Phoenix or whatever, if you will, or yeah, this is his, like, how he became who he became and how he found the voice that he found and just, raging against the machine throughout his entire career. So
yeah, that makes sense. I personally, I don't have a lot of experience with any of Hunter S. Thompson's works, and you guys don't be too upset with me, but I've never actually seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Impressive. Most impressive.
So, like, maybe watching that next will help kind of put this in perspective, because when you put it in that perspective, the way you just said, this is his kind of origin story, it makes a little bit more sense.
I think you're seeing it in a better sequence. I think the biggest fanfare probably came from Fear and Loathing. And I had seen that movie and front to back so many times and in pieces. It just so in so many ways. That was kind of my point of contact for any of my Hunter S. Thompson curiosity, whether it was learning more about him or reading some of his books of his letters, that kind of thing. And when I went and watched the Rum Diaries the very first time, I was waiting for some of that manic portrayal, and I got something much more subdued.
That explains it. Doesn't it?
Explains what?
The world.
So that first time around, it was almost like it was almost a slight disappointment, but having a chance to like sit with it for years on end and then come back to it and see it again, I came back with a better appreciation for what I was looking at, because it was much more subtle representations of Hunter. So I think it's like the fact that you haven't seen Fear and Loathing first, and you've seen Rum Diary first, and you're gonna follow up with something like that. I think that's a good order to go in, because you get a before and after, as opposed to doing it backwards.
Like the character names are different, and they're not Hunter S. Thompson, but they're both portrayals of Hunter.
Right.
I mean, he used to write under different pen names and all kinds of stuff. So, go back to it, visiting it, realizing these are both him. Like, these are both maybe exaggerated, but probably not that exaggerated stories that happened to him.
Yeah, that was something that I was kind of surprised by this movie, because I've heard a lot about Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and I've heard the movie is kind of chaos. There's a lot of chaotic stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept waiting for that to like happen in this movie, and it didn't. But I thought Johnny Depp was really good in it. Like his dialogue, I thought was good. I thought his acting was really good. It's kind of before. It felt like it was kind of before he became Captain Jack Sparrow in real life sort of days.
All about the rum.
For people who grew up with the internet as part of their life, either most of their life or their entire life, watching this movie and thinking about how events are happening and what's going on, this is portrayal of Puerto Rico like the late 50s, early 60s. So it's a different world and a very different time. Like the idea that somebody's going to pretend that they're a writer for the New York Times when they're really not. No one's going to fact check that in real time.
Right.
You got to like make a phone call or send a letter. Literally handwrite or punch out on a typewriter a letter and wait weeks for that letter to get there and then a response to come back. By the time any of that were to happen, the person who is just telling their lie can do what they need to do and be gone, and no one's the wiser or cares. It was just a very different time, and that's kind of like, you get snippets of how that happens in this movie. You get much more ramped up versions of that in Fear and Loathing, but the idea of the time frame when all of these things happen in this movie and any, specifically this movie, there's a totally different pace and tempo to everything that's going on. Everything's done by letter. Everything took longer. So you've got more, I don't know, it's the portrayal might seem more insane to a younger viewer, but it's definitely like the way the world was. It was really kind of how Hunter could become who he was in the way he became that person. And I don't think you could ever recreate it with modern technology, the way things happen today.
Right.
No, you can never become a rock star writer.
Yeah.
This gonzo writer and become famous. And like, I'd like to throw out there, so Johnny, I know you've read the books, but I read Fear and Loathing, like I found it when I was, 12.
Oh my God.
And I read it then, and I didn't know what any of the things even were in that book, but I went, oh, what is this? Like I never encountered any kind of writing like that or any style like that ever. Oh, and I just like to point out, because Zach, maybe you're not aware, this is a Ralph Steadman portrayal of Hunter S. Thompson. Ralph Steadman was an artist that Hunter worked with all the time.
Yeah.
So
okay.
That's my little tribute to Hunter in here.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Ralph Steadman became kind of hand in hand with a lot of Hunter's work, and they were just like best buds, and wherever Hunter was going for any of his journalism, Steadman would tag along with him very often. And you get some of these really grotesque kind of portrayals of the people he was writing about. So what you see behind Coleman is like, I think that is that from a Fear and Loathing reference?
I don't know if that, I don't think that one's directly from Fear and Loathing. He's got so many pictures of Hunter over the years because they were such close friends and they worked together so closely. But that book that I did find, it was like a 1970s copy of the book or something. And so it definitely had all the Steadman work all throughout the book. So
it's funny too, because I have my daughter, my second child, she's done some crazy manic drawings, and it reminds me a lot of Steadman.
Really?
For like a 4-year-old, she draws this. What is it? It's a bear. Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
It's what she sees in a bear.
That's it. That is some nightmare fuel. Okay. Good on you, kid.
Let's move on to some of the acting in this movie, because I thought there was some great acting. I mean, not just Depp as Hunter. Giovanni Ribisi was great in this movie.
Yes,
He
the
was.
Swede, right? Not possibly. Remember, timeline was late 50s, early 60s. It's not potentially an SS little lackey just happened to find their way to Puerto Rico. No,
Right.
with his uniform, his Hitler vinyl. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I saw that Hitler vinyl and I was like, Wait, what? I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you know, Johnny, I didn't even catch that he was a Nazi that came over and started writing.
Now, I am just making
Speculating.
assumptions here. He may have,
Oh, okay.
the character may have in fact been from Sweden, and he may have just liked the memorabilia. Who knows?
It's over.
What is?
They shut us down.
It just as I'm watching that and seeing those pieces, like, oh, he didn't go to Argentina. Interesting. So, you know, that was an interesting little tidbit that they worked in there. Eckhart?
Yes, Aaron Eckhart.
Aaron Eckhart.
Yep.
I think he was a great choice for the character he played. He does a really good job. Dark Knight? Yeah. Dark Knight, where he becomes Two-Face. Like, that really polished, kind of charming individual who has a really dark side to him.
Get the fuck out of here! I see your face again, you're gonna have a 12-gauge shotgun telling you what to do.
Like, he pulls that role off really well. I think he even does that a little bit. And Thank You for Smoking.
I was going to bring that movie up.
He's a good call for that character. He did a great job being that kind of slick slime ball. Like it's really just, he's charming up front, but he's really just a d-bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to Ribisi just in that I've never seen a character in a movie that looks more like they smell like piss.
Is it flat?
A standing ovation.
Which he definitely does. Like, you can smell him through the screen, how bloodshot his eyes are, and the voice he uses the whole time is...
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah,
The
like...
voice. It's just... And when he rages out on the editor...
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
just
yeah.
and the insults that him and the editor have back and forth to each other. You know, the editor screaming at him, "You're a waste of human sperm." It's like, oh my God, that's so good. Eckhart, I really liked. I saw a lot of Nick Naylor from Thank You for Smoking in here. He's Nick Naylor, but an asshole. Like, Nick Naylor is charming. You know, he's got the same charm to get stuff done, but at the end of the day, he's still not like nice and friendly and like he just turns into a dickhead.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think he delivered a great performance, but I definitely saw similarities between the two. Amber Heard, this was maybe one of the first times that I saw her, and I'm not too familiar with her, so I had to go back and make sure it was her. But yeah, as far as I know, this is where they met, was on the set of this movie, and then the rest is crappy history.
Yep.
Yeah, she plays Chenault, the blonde babe throughout the movie.
The TLDR, there was some kind of drama in real life, and this did bad things for people.
Like of assault, and I think the cops were called, and they've been in courts for quite some time. And
that's
like, witnesses have had to be called, and all
my apologies.
kinds.
That was way more than you don't cover that in TLDR. Okay.
So other thoughts on this movie? I'm sure John will cut all this shit, but
It's hard for me to not just suck Hunter S. Thompson's dick the whole time.
just suck Hunter S. Thompson's dick.
Suck Hunter S. Thompson's dick the whole time.
Such a fan.
Just because I really am. But this is going to be a whole like Ralph Steadman sleeve over here, probably with hints of Hunter in there as well.
Oh, who was it? Was it Sala was the photographer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was kind of a fun sidekick character.
He was a good. That was Michael Rispoli. That was another one. Like that was almost like a small nod to his cohort in Fear and Loathing, the lawyer friend of his that he ended up spending a lot of time hanging out with. That.
Yeah, I got that feeling.
Not to the same manic extent, but there was like a touch of that there too.
Yeah, I got that as well. And you know, he both helped him and got him into trouble and got him into cockfighting.
Suck Hunter S. Thompson's dick.
And kinds of great stuff. You know, just the progression through the movie of him first meeting Chenault, that character. They both kind of seem to click from the beginning, and she kind of passed him off like, I'll never see you again. And then every time they saw each other, she was touching him, and, you know, she clearly liked him too, and he was just obsessed with her up until she messed around with some random hot Puerto Rican guy, and Nick Naylor threw her out.
Yeah.
Nick Naylor is showing his true colors, throwing
Right.
his suitcase off in the bushes, and that was he got his ugly on good.
So, being that this is like kind of a semi-biography thing, like it's said in the like at the end is like that he moved to New York and him and her got married or whatever. Is that something that happened to Hunter S. Thompson? Did he like meet a girl when he was in Puerto Rico, and is there a story there?
I'm not positive.
Okay.
It wouldn't surprise me. He did have, I want to say, 2 wives over the years.
Okay.
He did have a first wife that he was married to for many years. Whether that's how he met her or that's just how he portrayed the story to kind of add a love interest to it.
Yeah.
I'm not positive, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case.
And
Okay.
he traveled and he was all over the place. He lived in, oh God, the man lived everywhere. He lived on the West Coast. He lived on the East Coast. He was in Florida, New York, California. He was in the Rockies. He had I think by the end his final residency ended up being Colorado. I think he even ran for an elected position at one point.
He did. He was in Aspen for many, many, many years. And I think he ran for sheriff of all things. But yeah, he was in Aspen forever up until he passed away. And now there's a giant memorial to him in Aspen, which is, I don't know how many, over 100-foot tall.
The double thumb
Gonzo
fist.
Yeah, it's the Gonzo fist with the peyote. It was actually a cannon, and so for his memorial, they shot his ashes out of the cannon, and then the memorial
nice.
still stands there. So
Okay.
100-foot tall, double thumbed fist.
Right.
I think I get where Zach's coming from. Like this doesn't feel like the big blockbuster kind of movie that it's more of like a tribute to him. I think one of the things that happens in this movie is another portrayal of almost like mediocrity.
I had some difficulty getting it to open.
It's the little key on the door key, sir.
I was looking for some nuts.
You're expecting potential big things to happen, and it always seems like something falls short. Like they never get the print run done. They just barely get the money to make it all happen.
Right.
Like there's all these things that go along the way become these subdued actions. It's almost like there was all the potential that could have been, like if there was 100% potential for a thing to happen, it only got to 50%. And it was almost like a reflection of how life would happen, expressing himself in ink and rage and damn the bastards. Like it was more of a smoldering anger and frustration that was going on in his life with a lot of things that happened. His frustrations with a lot of politics and issues in society would be, he'd speak his mind, but these were like below the surface, and kind of there was all these other things that were distracting people. And I think that's the other thing that came through. There was a lot of stuff about, they talk about the bowling alleys in this movie. These are superficial kind of distractions in American society at large.
Yeah.
And there's always this undercurrent of just either greed or corruption or whatever the problem is, and things are never done to their full potential kind of thing. It's like just enough to get it done. Things could have been grand, and they weren't.
Well, and they do allude to the American dream in this movie, which is a very strong theme throughout Hunter's life and his work. The editor, refers to the American dream as the coming to like saving money and coming to Puerto Rico and going to bowling alleys and staying in hotels and all this. And he was the one really talking about the American dream in the movie. And then throughout the rest of Hunter's career, he talks about the American dream, but it's his going on crazy drug runs and, writing insane articles and books and everything else. And he's, chasing the American dream. He went on the Nixon campaign trail for a while and has a whole book about that. But again, in
Wow.
all of this, it's a theme that he's chasing the American dream. But as a movie, I can see how it's a little unsatisfying in things like, Johnny, to your point, like things don't really get tied up. They don't accomplish the things that they want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, it's just you gotta know Hunter, I think, to really get the point of this movie.
Okay.
And Zach, I'm kind of curious, like, what's your thoughts are on all of that? You know, having not really watched any Hunter or read Hunter, or not being involved in all of that, like, what do you think about the movie as a whole? You know, and the whole process of it.
I mean, as a whole, I think it's an enjoyable movie. Now that's been put in context, certain things about it have kind of clicked, and it's like, okay, this is the beginning of, you know, a man's life, and it's how he became who he became. And you definitely see that, you know, Johnny Depp seems a little more wide-eyed in the beginning of the movie, you know, than he is at the end of the movie. And you can see, okay, you know, going on after that, there's more to the story, and like knowing that there's more to the story makes it a little more interesting to me. It's just going through, and you know, I need to watch Fear and Loathing, and now I'm kind of interested in some of these books. I'm a pretty big reader, and I don't know, I never got into Hunter S. Thompson, but like it seems like his writing would be something that I would be into. Something it did very well, I thought, is talking about the American dream, like you said, like talking about like what people really want, and it's, you know, the greed and all that. And I think it's good, it's cool that, you know, this is written forever ago, and you know, it's set in the 60s, and you know, we still see some of the same kind of stuff going on with like the greed and trying to chase the American dream today.
I think one of the things, and that was funny, like we're talking about American Dream, and we're talking about two things come to mind. Like, if I think in the, I don't know where you find it, there's a video, mostly audio. There's like an audio and there's some video of an interview that Hunter and his lawyer friend, I'm looking up, it was Dr. Gonzo, is what he was referred to as, the lawyer friend that was portrayed in Fear and Loathing, that they are in Las Vegas and they go up to a restaurant venue with like a walk-up takeout window, and they're having an interview with the owners working at the restaurant. They said they're looking for the American dream, and the entire conversation was these business owners not understanding that they're talking about the concept of the American dream, and instead they're like, oh, was that like talking about like these old casinos that have been torn down or closed up, and trying to think, oh, it's up the street that way, right? Like, kind of this disconnect where they're watching the Nixon debate.
Nixon's family, by the way.
What?
Yeah, my kids are the great niece and nephew of Richard Nixon.
Oh wow.
Anyways, continue.
This is more of a thanks Coleman. No, well, what was the comment by Depp's character in the movie when they're watching the Nixon debate, talking about how awful he thinks Nixon was as a politician, and then remarking about how he's not even the worst, someone else is going to come along that's even worse than that. Just like that note struck a chord, and seems like, I'm sure that made sense and carried over to when we're talking about, if you go forward in history, it's going to keep applying down the road, and it just seemed to really resonate.
Well, it's another good line in there too, where he's talking about Nixon, and you couldn't have anything with Hunter without Nixon in it somewhere.
He had a lot of outrage at that guy.
Yes, he did. But he, you know, talks about, well, that's all right, Nixon's not going to win. And he goes, what do you mean? Why not? He goes, the Irish guy's going to win, but they'll never let him live. And whether this was written before or after, I'm curious, but it wouldn't surprise me if Hunter had that insight beforehand.
I would be interested in that one too, finding out when, if the book had been published or had a final copy been, like if he had a final draft ready and done prior to those events, that would have been really interesting.
Well, Zach, I'll start with you. Would you recommend this movie, and who would you recommend it to?
I don't know. I guess I'd recommend it to people who are interested into getting into Hunter S. Thompson material. It's piqued my interest, and you know, that's who I'd recommend it to.
Johnny?
Same. I think this is definitely a movie for people who are already entrenched fans of Hunter that want to consume more content and movies and writing about him, and want to have a kind of a glimpse into the world that he lived in and how he operated. I don't think it's a bad movie for if you're outside of that fandom. I don't think it's a bad movie for anyone outside of that. If you're looking for an action, it's not an action movie, it's not a horror movie. There's some comedy built in, like baked into the interactions. There's some funny parts in it, but it's kind of I don't know, for like the non-Hunter fans, it's kind of subdued in some sense. But like I said, this is a movie that gives portrayals of mediocrity and a little closer to real life, and almost like a snippet of what life was like back in the 60s. So it's a different vibe. If you're not like an avid Hunter fan, it might not be your jam. But if you're looking to explore some stuff that Johnny Depp does, I don't think this is a good one. If you want to see Eckhart at work, if you want to see Depp at work, you're going to see good portrayals of their characters, and it's not a bad movie. So it's worth exploring, definitely for the Hunter fans. And, you know, if you just kind of got a slow Wednesday night, give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree. Obviously, we've talked about him enough throughout this show. It is definitely for the Hunter S. Thompson fan, but if you're a Hunter S. Thompson fan, you've probably already seen it. I don't think that you will grasp the full scope of the movie without that. So I would recommend it to people to watch, like you said, maybe on a slow night if they've got nothing else, but I don't expect people to walk away from it going, that's a great movie, unless they can grasp the full context of it, versus Fear and Loathing, where I had, you know, all kinds of friends that loved Fear and Loathing that never picked up a book in their life. So, yes, for the Hunter fan, yeah, give it a shot if you're not, but don't, you know, again, look for those great performances. Depp, Eckhart, Ribisi, fucking amazing in this. But, you know, don't expect greatness unless you really know the source material. Zach, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Z4CK38, and you can find me on Wednesdays on the Commander Social Podcast, wherever you download your podcasts.
Excellent. Johnny Mulligans.
You can find me on Twitter at CMDR_Hamilton, or you can find me hanging out, lurking in Cult of Film section in the videos and see my face and talking, and that's about as far as it goes.
Right, and you can find me at Coleman Yeti on Instagram and Twitter, occasionally on the channel Bat.
Wait! We can't stop here. This is Bat Country.
Cascade Backcountry, going on cool adventures sometimes, and then of course right here on the Cult of Film, where Johnny and I are the new hosts. So see you guys next week.
Ha 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 ha.